Welcome to MediByte. Today, we're diving into something that has completely changed how we think about modern medicine. We're talking about the huge revolution in understanding that trauma isn't just a bad memory. It's a real physical imprint that gets left on our brains and our bodies. So let's get right into how that actually happens. You know, this quote from Dr. Bessel Kolk just hits the nail on the head. For so long, we thought of trauma as, well, a story, right? Something bad that happened in the past. But what science is showing us now is that it's also a physical, biological fact. It's an imprint that literally changes how we live in the world long after the danger is gone.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is this imprint? And why does it feel so incredibly real, sometimes years or even decades later? Why do survivors feel like they're constantly reliving it? Heart pounding, body braced for a fight, even when they know they're perfectly safe? Well, the answer is deep inside the brain.
So let's talk about this lingering imprint. It's way more than just a bad memory. What we're actually talking about is a fundamental rewiring of how your brain manages perception. It literally changes the way you experience the world around you. Think of it like a switch. Your brain has this incredibly powerful survival system that's supposed to kick into high gear when you face a real threat. But with trauma, it's like that switch gets jammed. It gets stuck in the on position. And so the body just keeps on fighting a threat that actually belongs to the past, which leads to these reactions that can feel completely overwhelming and frankly just incomprehensible. Now, for decades, this whole thing was a total mystery. But then, a massive revolution in neuroscience gave us the tools we needed to finally see what was happening inside the brain when someone was having a traumatic response. Before the 1990s, the brain was basically a black box. We could study its chemicals. You could think of that as the gasoline, like serotonin and dopamine, but we couldn't actually watch the engine run. Then came the neuroscience revolution, which was a total game changer. It finally gave us a way to look inside the living, working brain. These tools, things like fMRI and PET scans, were incredible. For the very first time, scientists could ask someone to recall a traumatic memory and literally watch, in real time, which parts of their brain lit up, and maybe even more importantly, which parts went dark. We could finally see a flashback from the inside out. So what did all this new technology actually show us? Well, it revealed that there's this really delicate balance in the brain, a balance that trauma just completely shatters. See, your brain is this amazing network of different parts that are constantly talking to each other. You've got the brainstem at the bottom, just handling the basics like breathing. Then you've got the emotional limbic system, which manages feelings and relationships. And right up at the top, you have the rational prefrontal cortex that helps us plan things out and see the big picture. When you're healthy, they all work together in harmony. Let's simplify this with a great analogy. Think of your amygdala as the brain's smoke detector. It's super fast, it's always scanning for any sign of danger, and it sounds the alarm at the drop of a hat. It's quick, but, well, it's not always very smart. Then you have the medial prefrontal cortex, or the MFPC. This is the watchtower. It's the calm, rational part that can look at the whole situation and provide context. It's the part that says, hey, relax, you just burned the toast. It's not a real fire. It's what's supposed to calm that alarm down. But in a traumatized brain, this whole system just goes haywire. The smoke detector, the amygdala, becomes hypersensitive, going off all the time. And at the exact same moment, the watchtower just goes offline. It shuts down. So what you get is the emotional brain completely hijacking the rational brain. And without that context, without that perspective, the past isn't just remembered, it's relived. Physically and emotionally, it feels like it's happening right now. And this brings us to a really critical idea. This imbalance in the brain isn't just some mental thing happening in your head. It has profound, very real consequences for our physical bodies. This brain scan is incredible because it shows you exactly why you can't just think your way out of a trauma response. If you look closely, you'll see there are no direct pathways from the rational brain way down to the deep emotional brain. The only way to calm that alarm is through the watchtower, that medial prefrontal cortex, our hub for self-awareness. But since that's the very part that goes offline during a trauma reaction, logic and reason are pretty much locked out of the building. So the body's alarm system just keeps on firing. It's pumping out stress hormones, tensing up muscles, preparing for a threat that only exists in the past. And this constant state of high alert, this exhausting defense, is why trauma can lead to a whole host of physical problems, from chronic pain and fatigue to autoimmune issues. And this is probably the most important and compassionate shift in our entire understanding. What this science tells us is that post-traumatic reactions are not signs of a weak will or some kind of moral failing. They are the predictable, biological result of actual physical changes in the brain. It completely reframes the conversation from asking what's wrong with you to understanding this is what happened to you. Okay, so here's the really hopeful news in all of this. If trauma can change the brain for the worse, then healing can absolutely change it back for the better. This science doesn't just show us the problem, it also reveals these powerful new pathways to healing that work with the brain's amazing ability to rewire itself. The best approach to healing really engages the whole person. So you have top-down methods like talk therapy, which help bring that rational watchtower back online. Then you have medications or technology that can help quiet down that overactive smoke detector. And so crucially, you have bottom-up approaches, things like yoga or martial arts or just mindful movement. These use the body to send signals of safety up to the brain, letting it know on a deep physical level that the threat is finally over. And this really leaves us with a final, really powerful idea to think about. What if the true goal of recovery isn't to somehow erase the past? Because that's impossible. What if instead the goal is to rewire our brains and calm our bodies so that we can finally leave the past where it belongs and feel fully, completely, and safely alive right here in the present moment? We really hope this explainer helped make sense of the neuroscience behind trauma. If you found it valuable, please help support the channel by liking this, sharing it, and subscribing to MediByte for more deep dives into health and science. Thanks so much for joining us.